Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Log Show here on WSJU Radio, here on YouTube if you're checking into the live stream. And what a week last weekend was. Lots of sports going on. We had a sports equinox, like an official one. Obviously, I call the season a sports equinox, as you guys found out last week. But we had an official sports equinox on, I believe it was Monday. We had all four sports playing together in harmony on one day. So that was great. Sorry if I cough a little bit more than usual today. I'm not feeling great, but it is what it is. But besides that, a very, very exciting week 8, I believe it was, in the NFL. NFL trade deadline was last night, so a lot going on there. Obviously, World Series going on, a lot going on there. Just a lot going on in the sports world, if I'm going to be honest with you. It's a very exciting time to talk about sports in general. It's a very exciting time to be a sports fan and really get going. And obviously, I want to open the day up with the biggest news of the day, of today, really. It is today's news. It was this morning's news. It's not even in my notes, is how fresh the news is. I believe it was at I want to say it was at 9 o'clock last night, 10 o'clock. It was pretty late last night, or at least on the East Coast. The Raiders have officially decided to part ways with Josh McDaniels. He is officially relieved of his duties in Las Vegas, which I won't say necessarily surprises me. Does it surprise anyone? You know what I'm saying? I don't know really where else they were going to go with this. Obviously, he was going to either be fired now or at the end of the season. You might as well get it over with. The Raiders right now are sitting at, what are they at? I want to say they're at 2-5, 2-6 maybe. 3-5. Oh, they're 3-5. So, yeah, you're in a weird spot. Obviously, sitting at 3-5 as the Raiders, like I said, the way that offense was running as the Raiders, the way Jimmy Garoppolo was playing, also he gets benched on top of the firing of McDaniels. It's really not that all that surprising to me. Like I said, you either had to do it now or you were gonna do it mid-season. It was one, or you were gonna do it at the end of the season. It was one or the other. I think everybody who's watched this Raider team play football can say that they this offense just, even with weapons like Devontae Adams, with Josh Jacobs, the offense really just couldn't roll and couldn't get going as much as you would hope they could. So that was really rough for them. And then on top of that, just coach, it seemed, there's, since obviously that whole Chandler Jones thing came out, hopefully he gets well. There's something wrong, I think, with him as well. But Chandler Jones tweeted a bunch of things earlier this year, had a bunch of disputes this offseason. Josh Jacobs has been in contract disputes with them. They had that whole situation with Derek Carr, which I honestly feel like was very disrespectful to Derek Carr, who was drafted there to be this franchise quarterback. You end up in this situation where Raiders, they really didn't like Josh McDaniels. They don't like the front office, Raiders players. You're in a really weird spot. They fire their GM as well. So Mark Davis is really trying to do something. He's really trying to do something and trying to tell his players that he's on their side. So he makes that move. But along with that move, it seems that Jimmy Garoppolo gets benched, which is a crazy move to me, in my opinion. So it's really interesting, in my opinion, what's going on there. And you look at the Garoppolo situation, like, should he have gotten benched? I don't know. Now, is Garoppolo playing well by any means? No. You saw it on Monday night, and I'll talk about that game a little bit later, more later, but I'll get into it a little bit right now. You look at Monday night for Garoppolo, and you look at the season. Did he deserve to get straight up benched? Excuse me. I mean, did Garoppolo deserve to get really straight up benched. I don't know, just because of the talent in the quarterback room there in Las Vegas. I don't know if the rookie that they're starting this week, I'm blanking on his name, but I don't know if he's any better. It's a weird situation there with the whole benching. I feel like was a little much. But like you looked at it Monday night, Garoppolo isn't working. He missed Devontae Adams on 2 deep balls that would have been touchdowns. He misses wide open players. He's not great on the deep ball. There's a lot going on. There's a lot that goes on with Jimmy Garoppolo that definitely screams not franchise quarterback. That screams not him, not someone you're going to go really win a lot of games with. So you are, like I said, you're in a weird spot if you're Vegas because, like, I guess, are you playing for a quarterback this year? Are you? I don't know. Because you also have to remember you're in the AFC West at the end of the day as the Raiders. Like, you got the Chiefs, you got the Chargers who are iffy every year, the Broncos who maybe might be putting stuff together. So I don't know. I don't know. What I do want to get into after that whole Raiders news, that's really not big news to me. I did want to touch on it, though, for all of you who do care. Just because it's interesting, like I said, like McDaniel's out, just out. And yeah, it seems to be the right choice. It seems to be what they needed to do. Again, the question is the right choice to do it in the middle of the season, late at the end of the season. 3-5, your season's not necessarily over, but I don't know. Moving on to the news of yesterday, what ended at 4 p.m. Eastern time yesterday would be the NFL trade deadline, which the NFL trade deadline is always a lot of fun because I don't know. I find it fun just because it's not as fun, obviously, as the NBA trade deadline, which is the trade deadline in all sports, in my opinion, that really gets going and really rocks. But that's why I like the NFL headline I like the NFL trade deadline is because it's kind of like everyone overhypes it, and I kind of look at a lot of people and I'm like, yo, you won't get that many big trades. And then sometimes trades surprise me, like what Washington yesterday. And like you look at that, they traded 2 players who like may not be getting a lot of hype because they're not having excellent years this year. But Chase Young's coming off 2 season-ending injuries, a torn ACL that kept him out for a very long time. And he's a really, really good player. I think Chase Young could be the best pass rusher on probably 2/3 of the team in the league. And he goes to a team like San Francisco, where I just look at that D-line now, and you got Joey Bosa, Chase Young, Vernon Hartgrave, you got what's his name was getting time at the end, who I'm blanking on last week, had a good week. You just have you got a lot. And that San Francisco defense, not even just saying the front 7. You got Fred Warner, you got those linebackers back that like. I think Chase Young to this defense is a very, very great addition. I think he's honestly the best addition of the trade deadline. Realistically, Sweat to Chicago is also great for Chicago, but Chicago's in a weird spot where it's like that's playing for the future, yes, and it might not look great this year because it won't improve your record that significantly this year, but it addresses a place of need for Chicago that they now don't have to do in the draft or in free agency. It's kind of just an early free agency for Chicago, looking for next year. In the sense of Chase Young going to San Francisco, that's San Francisco making a move to make their defense only better to try to really make a run here at the Super Bowl and really put dominance over the NFC. That you look at Super Bowl contenders and the NFC just kind of it's weak. You got Philly. I like to say Dallas, but Dallas has kind of fallen off over the past few weeks. Obviously, you got San Francisco, who we're talking about now. But then you look through the rest of that NFC, and it's like the whole NFC South, even though I'm a huge Saints fan, like None of them are Super Bowl contenders yet. I don't see maybe Detroit's due for a run, but are you telling me Jared Goff has made a Super Bowl? I guess. I guess that team could maybe put something together, but that's saying a lot. That is going on a stretch saying that Detroit's a Super Bowl contender in the NFC. So you look at that NFC, it's just weak when it comes to these upper echelon teams, these top tier teams. And like Chase Young, he's got 5 sacks this year through 7 games. I saw he is on the last year of his deal. Washington didn't pick up that 5th-year option, so he is a free agent at the end of this year. It's like it's a 8-week, 9-week rental. But you look at Chase Young and how that has worked out. He's gonna fit into San Francisco well. He's a solid player. They get him for extremely cheap too, because I think Washington has paid 80-90% of that contract. I read it somewhere. I don't remember who exactly reported it, but I did read it that San Francisco is paying 800,000 or 700,000, less than $1 million for Chase Young for the rest of this year, and that's honestly insane for a player of that caliber. For for a player of you know what I mean? He's definitely, I would say, a top 10 pass rusher in the league. I think you could argue Montez Sweat on the same team better, but I think Chase Young's better than Montez Sweat. I have Montez Sweat, if we're rating pass rushers, around 12, 13. I have Chase Young around 8. But to get someone like Chase Young for that cheap, I think is just a great addition for a team that is the second right now. It's the second best defense in the league behind Cleveland, whose defense has been playing unreal this year. But I think that's I think it's a great addition for San Francisco. And we talked about Sweat for a little bit. Sweat's been having an okay year. He's got 21 tackles. He's consistent too, Montez Sweat. That's why I like that trade for Chicago, only for a 2nd-round pick too. This is a player he's had 5 sacks within the past with every season within the last 5 seasons. He's a very consistent pass rusher, someone who's just, I think, is good for the future of Chicago, and a Chicago team that has been very bad defensively this year. Surprisingly, they went from the worst pass rush in the league to the worst pass rush in the league. They haven't moved from last year. They were 32nd all year last year. They've been 32nd pretty much all year this year. So really, it's a small move for Chicago, but I like the move. I think it'll work out. Other big moves for the trade deadline. Trade deadline. Josh Dobbs, he gets traded to the Vikings, which I find interesting. I don't know why they benched him in Arizona. I know Kyler's coming back, but Kyler's not supposed to play this week. Why not? I guess you want to trade him then if Kyler's coming back, but I don't know. I think you want to win games too. It's weird. I think Josh Dobbs, it was a much needed trade. The Vikings needed to make a trade for a quarterback at the deadline after what happened to Kirk Cousins. You need to make a trade for a quarterback. Obviously, you need to make that move. They said they liked their rookie, but he was able to squeeze out a win against the Packers, but he didn't really do much. They kind of just started to run the ball at that point in that game. Dobbs has had a pretty good year. He's had a problem turning the ball over a little bit. He has I think it's 10, 11 turnovers. But he does have 8 touchdowns, 1,500 yards. For a Vikings team that was struggling, obviously you still don't have Justin Jefferson. You just lose Kirk Cousins while you were on a run. It's really, really rough for the Vikings to end up in the situation you did, but to get Josh Dobbs out of it, I really I like that a lot. I do like getting Josh Dobbs for Minnesota. I like that move. I think he could put together a couple wins to like what you like the Vikings. They're sitting at I want to say they're what is it? I think they're 3-5 as well, if I remember correctly. They might be 4-4. They are 4-4. So yeah, they're sitting at 4-4. Realistically, that means you need 5 wins out of Josh Dobbs. If you get Justin Jefferson back, I don't think it's impossible. Like I don't think it's you know what I mean. And with the way the NFC is this year, 9-8 team could definitely get into the playoffs. So if that's what you're looking for the Vikings is to continue to win games and get into the playoffs, Josh Dobbs is a great choice. I'm going to be honest because I think that's what Josh Dobbs likes to do. As much as he turns the ball over, like he tends to like I think he has like I want to say it's like 7 or 8 fumbles this year, along with 5 interceptions. So like that's the issue, but is the fumbles and going to Minnesota, a place that fumbles a lot, that might be a problem. Hopefully not. I think they could get some wins together though. Hopefully you get like if they can get 2 wins together and then get Justin Jefferson back, I think they got a chance to make the playoffs. I'm gonna be honest. Giants make a deal at the deadline this year. They ship Leonard Williams out of town to Seattle for a second. I think it's I believe it's a second this year and a third next year, if I remember correctly. Not a bad move for either side. The Giants getting draft capital that's needed. Leonard Williams, someone who's kind of been slacking off the past couple of years, has been injured, hasn't been able to stay healthy for a full season for I think it's been like 3 years since Leonard Williams has played a full season. For last time he did play a full season, he played very well, don't get me wrong. But he hasn't played a full season for the Giants, I want to say, in like 2-3 seasons. So the Giants getting draft capital for him, I don't hate. I think it's a good move for Seattle, making an improvement while they're sitting in first in their division right now. Obviously, both teams, one Giants where they are, needed to be sellers at this point in at the deadline. Needed to be really needed to be do something, get draft capital in some way. Seattle sitting at first in your division, you want to be buyers in that situation. So to be able to get someone like Leonard Williams, who you don't need to play every snap in Seattle, I think is a great move for Seattle to move to compete, hopefully, excuse me, with San Francisco in that division and really excel. Lions make a move. They get Donovan People-Jones, which for those of you who don't know who Donovan People-Jones is, he's a very, very interesting player. Not really a big stud up there in Cleveland. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't call him the stud player. But what gets me really excited about this trade for Donovan People-Jones in Detroit was what Dan Campbell came out and said afterwards, which was he was like, I like his speed and athleticism. There's a lot he could do. He's a versatile player. And when you see coaches get excited about someone being a versatile player, you look at the situation of like a Taysom Hill, a Deebo Samuel, a Christian McCaffrey, a Derrick, and like obviously all these players are slightly different, but the reason I'm putting them all in the same conversation is because you look at like they all can do things beyond their position. Derrick Henry has these jump passes that he throws out of nowhere. He's like, ooh, 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 jump pass that Derrick Henry likes to do. You have Deebo Samuel, who plays wide receiver, running back, quarterback. He could do anything. Christian McCaffrey, same thing. You got the Taysom Hills, same thing. Running back, quarterback, wide receiver, punt returner, punt blocker. You know what I mean? You got all these players. You had the J.J. Watts in the back in the day who played tight end and DN. You got all these crazy athletic players in the NFL these days, and I love to see coaches be able to really expose that and express that and get creative with it. You see it a lot in places like Kansas City with Pacheco, and you see it in Miami with Tyreek Hill. You see it in New Orleans with Taysom Hill. You see it in all these different places. Like I said, Tennessee with Derrick Henry. And it's so fun to see. It adds so much fun to the game, a little bit of spice to the game, and really shows the evolution of offenses, that it's more than just that the NFL can also become a positionless game like basketball, like all of these other sports that are going positionless. We are always like, we're not just an old school league. We could do that same thing where we could have fun and do all this. And I love to see the NFL really do that. I think it's so much fun when you see a coach like Dan Campbell get excited for a player like Donovan Peoples-Jones to come in for the reason of saying, hey, look at this. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be creative with this dude. So I'm excited for it. Hopefully they do get creative with him. They didn't get creative with Jahmyr Gibbs until Monday night. They realized, oh, wait, this dude's actually good at the sport of football. Holy crap. So, yeah. Yeah, and then final move of the trade deadline was Packers trading Rasul Douglas to the Bills for a fifth and a third. Rasul Douglas and a fifth for a third to Buffalo. Solid move for both teams. Packers needed to make some sort of move at the deadline, add a little bit of draft capital, while the Bills needed to be a little bit of buyers, add a little bit of someone in your defense, someone who's good in open field at making open field tackles. Has an interception, has a couple pass breakups this year. I think he has 5 interceptions over the past 3 seasons. So he's a pretty good corner. He's not this insanely exceptional player. Obviously, he's not this game changer like Montez Sweat and Chase Young, like we were talking about earlier. But Rasul Douglas, nonetheless, is a great addition for Buffalo. Really, he's a great slot corner. He's good in man. He can really make an impact for that team, 100%, 110% can make an impact for that team. Moving on to this week, or this past week of NFL football, the actual games, not the trade deadline, not Josh McDaniels getting fired, but the actual week 8 of the NFL. And obviously, I talk here on St. John's Radio. We're in Queens, New York. I'm from New Jersey. I have to talk about an event that rarely happens, the Jets versus the Giants. And you guys want to know my genuine opinion on this football game? Do my viewers want to know my genuine opinion on the Jets versus Giants game? Now, congratulations to the Jets. I'll start here. Congratulations to the Jets for winning the sloppiest, most ugly performance of NFL football I have seen between two teams in my entire life. Tyrod Taylor got injured on a pass that he slipped out of his hands and he caught himself. Giants lost because of a shanked field goal that I've never seen so badly shanked. The Jets somehow had 2 players with over 100 yards, yet only had 13 points in offense. This game was just boring. There was nothing going on. Shout out Thomas Moore.